Today we're talking all about emergency funds. How much do you need and where are you going to get the money to put into that fund? Especially if you're barely able to make ends meet because everything like food and rent is so expensive due to high inflation. So we're going to talk all about that. Plus I'm going to give you some financial tips throughout the video. So make sure you watch all the way through. Come on, let's get into it. Now, everyone is in a different financial point in their lives. There are some who are just making ends meet, others who are working on paying off their debt, and then there are those who are building up their wealth to achieve financial freedom. So depending where you are on your financial journey, you should be able to find something in this video that will add value to your situation. If you do, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Now, to answer the question, how much money you need to have in an emergency fund is relative to where you are financially, because the more money you have, the less money you would need to have in an emergency fund. When you have no money, everything tends to be an emergency. Let me explain in an example. If you don't have money to do regular maintenance on your car, such as getting regular oil changes or making sure your spark plugs are good, your air filters are clean, your batteries look good, this increases your chances of one day getting ready for work, going to your car and it doesn't start, or on your way to work, the car breaks down on you. Now, this becomes an emergency because you need that car to get to work so that you can make money to pay your bills and take care of your family. Life is already full with financial demands, so it might seem hard to prioritize setting aside some money for the unexpected when you can barely deal with what's expected. But building up an emergency fund with at least $1,000 should be your top priority. But where do you get that $1,000 if you're barely able to make ends meet and you have no extra money? Well, you can do it. You can build up at least $1,000 in an emergency fund. I'm sure you can. If it takes you 3 months, 6 months, a year, you can do it. I remember back in the day, my mom and I used to go to the flea market every Saturday. We would rent a 6-feet table and everything that we wanted to sell, we would put it on that table. And during the week, we would search the entire house. And this used to be fun and exciting. We would search the house for everything that we could find that we did not use for months or years, whether it was used clothes, shoes, CDs, books, dishes, canned goods, anything that could fit on that table that we could sell, we sold. And now there's even more opportunities to sell your stuff, like Facebook Marketplace and all these other apps. And that's just one option of where you can find extra money to put towards that $1,000 emergency savings account. But what about doing some overtime on your job? Is that an option? Also, is there any membership or subscriptions that you have that's a want and not a need? Can you maybe purchase generic items for a while? Listen, you can do this. And if you don't believe me, just go in front of the mirror and say, you can do this to the person who's looking back at you. All right, so let's talk to that person who already has that $1,000 or more saved up, who wants to know how much more to save, but you also have debt. And here's where you need to make a determination whether it would make more financial sense to pay off that debt or to save more. And this is where many people typically spend most of their time. You can be in this phase for 3, 5, or 10 years, and that's okay. It all depends on how much debt you have, how much money you want to save, and how long is it going to take for you to get there. Now, believe it or not, there's another phase right after this one, and I'll talk about that soon, so keep watching. Now, going back to either paying down your debt or building up your emergency funds further, I would say this. If you know your profession skill is in high demand, meaning whatever you do to make money, your profession, your job, that skill is in high demand and you can get a replacement job in under a month, should you need to do so, I would say have at least 2 months worth of monthly living expenses in a emergency savings account and then work on paying down your debt. Now, if your skill is less in demand and it may take you a longer time to find a replacement job, you may want to have at least 3 months worth of living expenses in an emergency savings account. This should give you enough time to find a replacement job, and then you can tackle paying down your debt. So even though paying off debt is important and we need to pay off debt before having a sizable emergency fund, we must first make sure that we're protected in case we lose our primary source of income, because this could result in putting us further into debt. Now, once your high interest unsecured debt has been paid off, and this can take a long time, that's why I mentioned typically a lot of people are in this phase for many years, depending on how much debt has been accumulated. But once that debt has been paid off, you'll be amazed of how quickly you'll be able to build up your emergency fund, because all that money that was going towards paying down your debt can now be put towards building up your emergency fund. So how much money do you need to have in this emergency fund that you're building? Well, some experts say 3 to 6 months, some say 8 to 12 months. In my opinion, an emergency fund should be specific to the individual's financial outlook. Going back to the question, do you have a high in demand skill? Are you a school teacher, a doctor? Are you a nurse? Do you have a family that's depending on you? Do you have kids? What number makes you feel secure? What number makes you sleep good at night? I want you to ask yourself these questions. Think about this and then be realistic. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed and discouraged when you hear people say you need to have at least 12 months worth of living expenses in an emergency savings account. When your living expenses is $4,000, 4,000 times 12, that's $48,000. It can take you a long time to save this much money, and to some, it may seem unattainable. Then you also have to make sure you have this money in the right type of account so that it does not lose value due to inflation. That said, I have at least 1 year's worth of living expenses in an emergency savings account. To explain why, let's talk about phase 3. Phase 3 is typically for those who are debt-free, no mortgage, retirement accounts maxed out. They may be living off their investments. When you're living off your investments and the market is down, you don't want to have to pull money out of your investments. So it will be beneficial to have a larger pool of money that you can dip into for 2 to 3 years should the market be down for that long. Now, I am not at a stage where I need to pull money out of my investments, but having that 1 year's worth of living expenses makes me feel secure, and that's what's important to me. Now, all of it is not liquid. Some is liquid, and then some is invested in instruments where it does not lose value, such as CDs, tips, and treasury bills. All right, my friends, so the amount that you need is truly the amount that you need, not the amount that I need or what your neighbor needs or what your Uncle Michael needs. Your Uncle Michael could be a young, single doctor, no kids, able to get 3 job offers at the same time in a down economy. So he might be able to get by with having a $4,000 emergency savings account, maybe 1 year's month of living expenses. You, on the other hand, may have a family that you need to take care of. You need to make sure that they're safe and protected and provided for financially. So you may need more of a buffer. So sit down, put pen to paper, be honest, be realistic, and put a plan together. And if you need any help with putting a financial plan together, click on the on-screen video and I'll see you there.